I do want to get back to a story that we have been tracking very closely, as the New York Police Department has released body camera footage of the attack on two officers by a group of migrants in Times Square.
Things are beginning to heat up in New York as migrants seeking asylum in the city are beginning to disrupt it. As if the financial burden on the city was not enough, some of the migrants have begun committing crimes, even attacking the police officers sent there to restore law and order. In this video, I will show you the new video of the U.S. forces fighting NYC migrant gangs, currently going viral. NYPD attacked. It all started on a seemingly ordinary Saturday evening, January 27th, near Times Square in New York City. Surveillance video captured a group of men and two police officers calmly interacting on camera. At first glance, it appeared to be a routine encounter, but little did anyone know that tensions were about to escalate dramatically. Around 8:30 p.m., the pair of officers made a decision that would change the course of the evening. They attempted to take down one of the men, suspecting him of involvement in some form of disorderly conduct. What began as a routine apprehension quickly turned into a violent altercation. The suspect, fueled by a surge of aggression, delivered a powerful kick to one of the officers' heads, catching him off guard. The blow was swift and unexpected, leaving the officer momentarily stunned. This single act of violence set off a chain reaction that would soon engulf the scene. Within moments, the group of men swarmed around the officers who were already on the ground. They unleashed a barrage of punches and strikes, targeting the officers relentlessly. The sheer force and intensity of the attack were shocking, leaving the officers defenseless against the onslaught. Despite the ferocity of the assault, the officers managed to escape with minor injuries. They were treated at the scene, but the psychological impact of the attack would linger long after their physical wounds had healed. In the immediate aftermath of the attack, the NYPD sprang into action. Within minutes, two suspects, Yorman Reveron, 24, and Darwin Andres Gomez Isquiel, 19, were apprehended. The swift response by law enforcement was commendable, but it was only the beginning of a complex investigation that would unfold in the days to come. As the night wore on, officers continued their search for justice. At approximately 10:15 p.m., Kelvin Servat Arocha, 19, and Wilson Juarez, 21, were taken into custody. With four suspects in custody, it seemed like progress was being made. However, what happened next would ignite public outrage and raise questions about the justice system. Shockingly, all four suspects were released just hours after their arrest, without any bail requirement. The decision to release them without bail left many in disbelief and fueled a growing sense of frustration among the public. How could individuals accused of such a violent attack be set free so easily? The incident quickly gained attention from the media, with headlines highlighting the brazen attack on NYPD officers near Times Square. The public demanded answers and accountability, setting the stage for a contentious investigation into the events that unfolded that fateful evening.
New body cam footage of those migrant suspects in that brutal beatdown on a couple of cops in Times Square.
As the investigation continued, the NYPD released surveillance video footage of the attack, hoping to identify additional individuals involved. The release of the footage was a crucial step in gathering evidence and bringing the perpetrators to justice. In the days following the attack, the NYPD also released images of four additional suspects wanted in connection with the assault. The public was urged to come forward with any information that could aid in the identification and apprehension of these individuals. As the investigation into the attack on the NYPD officers near Times Square unfolded, public attention turned towards Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and his handling of the case. The decisions made by the district attorney would soon come under intense scrutiny and face mounting criticism. On Friday, February 2nd, as the public demanded answers, Bragg initially remained silent when questioned by reporters about why the five suspects were released without bail. This silence only fueled the growing outrage and frustration among the public. The lack of transparency and accountability from the district attorney's office left many questioning the integrity of the justice system. People wanted to know why individuals accused of such a violent attack were seemingly allowed to walk free without any consequences. Later that day, Bragg finally spoke at a news conference, addressing the concerns and criticisms that had been mounting.
In Manhattan, we do not tolerate or accept assaults on police officers. I watched the tape this week. Despicable behavior. It sickened me.
He acknowledged the public's frustration and assured them that the matter was under further investigation. Bragg stated that he had no proof that the four suspects who had allegedly fled to California had actually left the state. He emphasized the importance of ensuring that the right people are charged with the right crimes, even if it meant taking more time to gather the necessary evidence.
I don't think any New Yorker wants us to charge the wrong person.
The district attorney's comments did little to quell the public's anger. Many felt that the response was inadequate and that swift swift action should have been taken to hold the suspects accountable for their actions. On Saturday, February 3rd, Bragg released a statement acknowledging that some of the most culpable individuals involved in the attack had not yet been identified or arrested. He assured the public that his office was working closely with the NYPD to find and hold them accountable for their despicable acts. Bragg's statement indicated that charges would be presented to a grand jury on Tuesday, February 6th. This announcement was seen as a step in the right direction, as it signaled progress in the pursuit of justice for the victims and the community. However, the criticism against Bragg continued to intensify. Many questioned his ability to effectively handle such a high-profile case and expressed concerns about his commitment to ensuring the safety of law enforcement officers and the public. On Monday, February 5th, the case took another unexpected turn. News broke that a group of migrants had been arrested at a Greyhound bus station in Phoenix, Arizona, in connection to the NYPD attack. This development added another layer of complexity to the investigation and raised questions about the extent of Bragg's jurisdiction. The following day, on February 6th, Johanry Brito, one of the suspects in the attack, was indicted by a grand jury. This indictment provided a glimmer of hope for those seeking justice, but it also put the spotlight back on Bragg and his handling of the case. On Wednesday, February 7th, the Manhattan DA's office clarified that the suspects who were reported to have been released on bail in Arizona were not affiliated with the Times Square attack case. This clarification further fueled the criticism surrounding Bragg's handling of the investigation. The controversy surrounding Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's handling of the case continued to divide public opinion. While some believed that he was diligently working towards justice, others felt that his actions and statements fell short of what was expected in such a high-profile and sensitive case. As the investigation progressed, the focus shifted to the upcoming grand jury presentation and the hope that it would bring about the accountability and justice that the victims and the community deserved. On Thursday, February 8th, authorities held a news conference to announce a major breakthrough in the case. 7 individuals were indicted for their alleged involvement in the Times Square attack. The purpose of the press conference was to inform the public about the charges and seek their assistance in identifying and locating the suspects. The press conference shed light on the severity of the charges against the indicted individuals. The authorities emphasized the importance of holding them accountable for their actions and ensuring that justice is served. Prior to the news conference, the NYPD had released images of 2 additional suspects wanted in connection with the attack. One of these individuals, described as one of the worst offenders, was caught on video repeatedly kicking the officers. The release of these images aimed to generate public awareness and aid in the identification and apprehension of the remaining suspects. The announcement of the indictments brought a sense of relief to the community, as it signified progress in the pursuit of justice. However, it also highlighted the complexity of the investigation and the challenges faced by law enforcement in identifying and apprehending all those involved. Alongside the announcement of the indictments, the NYPD released body camera footage showing multiple angles of the attack. This footage provided a chilling visual account of the incident, leaving viewers shocked and appalled by the brutality inflicted upon the officers. If you did not know, many have already been complaining for months that something like this was bound to happen as the state battles with an immigration crisis. This immigration crisis has left city officials scratching their heads for solutions. One of the initiatives the Cathy-led administration has pursued is sending the National Guard to hasten asylum processing. Hochul sends the National Guard. As the migrant crisis in New York continues to escalate, Governor Kathy Hochul has taken decisive action to address the growing lawlessness that has gripped the state. With reports of violence and criminal activities involving asylum seekers on the rise, the situation has reached a tipping point. In a bold move, Governor Hochul has deployed an additional 150 National Guardsmen to restore order and ensure the safety of both the local population and the migrants themselves. The influx of migrants seeking refuge in New York has overwhelmed local resources, leading to a breakdown in law and order. The state has become a magnet for those fleeing violence, persecution, and economic hardship in their home countries. However, the sheer number of arrivals has strained the capacity of the existing infrastructure, leaving both the migrants and the local community vulnerable. Governor Kathy Hochul, recognizing the urgency of the situation, has made it a top priority to address the challenges posed by the migrant crisis. With her recent deployment of 150 National Guardsmen, she aims to provide much-needed support to law enforcement agencies and alleviate the burden on already strained resources. The National Guardsmen, trained in maintaining public order and responding to emergencies, will work in collaboration with local law enforcement agencies to restore peace and ensure the safety of all residents. Their presence will serve as a deterrent to criminal activities and provide a sense of security to both the migrants and the local community. The conditions in the overcrowded migrant camps have been a cause cause for concern, with reports of inadequate shelter, limited access to health care, and a lack of basic amenities. Governor Hochul has vowed to improve the living conditions for the migrants and streamline the asylum process to ensure a more efficient and humane approach. However, the challenges faced by Governor Hochul are not limited to the immediate needs of the migrants. The lawlessness that has ensued has had a profound impact on the local community. Reports of thefts, assaults, and drug-related incidents have become all too common, leaving residents feeling unsafe and vulnerable. The deployment of the National Guardsmen is a crucial step towards restoring order and addressing the root causes of the crisis. Governor Hochul's decision reflects her commitment to the safety and well-being of all residents, both migrants and locals alike. As about the same time that Kathy sent our National Guards, 2 asylum seekers were arrested after allegedly assaulting their girlfriends in one of the hotel's lavish suites. The Roosevelt Hotel, known for its luxurious accommodations and high-profile guests, became the center of attention when a heated argument between the couples escalated into a violent altercation. Hotel staff immediately contacted the authorities, who arrived promptly to apprehend the suspects. The identities of the asylum seekers and their girlfriends have not been disclosed, but sources indicate that they were part of the growing number of migrants seeking refuge in New York. This incident serves as a stark reminder of the challenges faced by both the migrants and the local community amidst the ongoing crisis. The alleged assault at the Roosevelt Hotel raises questions about the impact of the migrant crisis on the safety and well-being of all residents. While the vast majority of asylum seekers are law-abiding individuals seeking a better life, incidents like this underscore the need for increased vigilance and effective measures to address potential criminal activities. Governor Kathy Hochul's decision to deploy additional National Guardsmen is a step towards restoring order and ensuring the safety of all residents. The Guardsmen will work in collaboration with local law enforcement agencies to prevent such incidents and provide a sense of security to both the migrants and the local community. However, it is important to note that incidents like the one at the Roosevelt Hotel should not overshadow the broader context of the migrant crisis. The overwhelming majority of asylum seekers are fleeing violence, persecution, and economic hardship in their home countries, seeking a chance at a better life. The conditions in the overcrowded migrant camps remain a cause for concern. Limited access to health care, inadequate shelter, and a lack of basic amenities continue to pose challenges for both the migrants and the authorities responsible for their well-being. Governor Hochul has vowed to improve the living conditions for the migrants and streamline the asylum process. By doing so, she aims to create a more efficient and humane approach that addresses the immediate needs of the migrants while ensuring the safety and well-being of the local community. But for people who thought Kathy's initiative was an Hail Mary to an already dire situation, think again. National Guardsman abuse. In a federal lawsuit filed on behalf of several migrants and whistleblower workers, shocking allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse have been made against National Guard members and private supervisors. These alleged abuses took place at the Quality Inn Motel near the Buffalo Niagara International Airport, one of the many motels being used as shelters for asylum seekers. The lawsuit paints a grim picture of a culture of coercion, fear, and retribution at the Quality Inn, where vulnerable migrants have been relocated to relieve pressure on New York City's overwhelmed shelter system. The accusations include a guardsman coercing a Venezuelan woman into trading sexual favors for food and housing, as well as another guardsman groping the woman's 10-year-old daughter. While the National Guard has not confirmed the existence of a sexual misconduct investigation, one guardsman named in the lawsuit, Sergeant Devin Colon, has acknowledged that an inquiry is underway. The New York Military Division of the National Guard has stated that anyone found violating its rules or the law will face consequences. This case also involves allegations against supervisors employed by DocGo, a company that was awarded a multi-million-dollar contract to house and care for migrants. The lawsuit claims that one supervisor had sexual relations with a migrant under his protection, while another supervisor choked a migrant after a confrontation. These shocking allegations highlight the vulnerability of migrants and the urgent need for their protection. It is crucial that those responsible for these abuses are held accountable, and measures are put in place to prevent such incidents from happening again. According to the lawsuit, one guardsman stands accused of sexual assault, coercing a Venezuelan woman into trading sexual favors in exchange for food and housing. This guardsman, identified as Sergeant Devin Colon, is alleged to have taken advantage of his position of authority to exploit the vulnerability of the migrant woman. The lawsuit further claims that Sergeant Colon also groped the woman's 10-year-old daughter, an act that is both shocking and deeply disturbing. But the allegations don't stop there. The lawsuit also includes accusations against supervisors employed by DocGo, the company responsible for housing and caring for migrants. One supervisor is accused of having sexual sexual relations with a migrant under his protection, while another supervisor is alleged to have choked a migrant after a confrontation in the asylum seeker's room. These incidents highlight a culture of abuse and misconduct that has permeated the very institutions tasked with providing safety and support to vulnerable migrants. It is important to note that these allegations are not isolated incidents. They are part of a larger pattern of abuse and mistreatment that has been uncovered at the Quality Inn and other motels used as shelters for asylum seekers. The migrants, already fleeing difficult circumstances in their home countries, have found themselves subjected to further trauma and exploitation. The lawsuit seeks justice for the victims and holds those responsible accountable for their actions. It is a stark reminder that no one, regardless of their position or authority, should be above the law. The National Guard and private supervisors have a duty to protect and serve, and any breach of that duty is a betrayal of the trust placed in them. But the allegations don't stop there. The lawsuit also includes accusations against supervisors employed by .go, the company responsible for housing and caring for migrants. One supervisor is accused of having sexual relations with a migrant under his protection, while another supervisor is alleged to have choked a migrant after a confrontation in the asylum seeker's room. These incidents highlight a culture of abuse and misconduct that has permeated the very institutions tasked with providing safety and support to vulnerable migrants. It is important to note that these allegations are not isolated incidents. They are part of a larger pattern of abuse and mistreatment that has been uncovered at the Quality Inn and other motels used as shelters for asylum seekers. The migrants, already fleeing difficult circumstances in their home countries, have found themselves subjected to further trauma and exploitation. The lawsuit seeks justice for the victims and holds those responsible accountable for their actions. It is a stark reminder that no one, regardless of their position or authority, should be above the law. The National Guard and private supervisors have a duty to protect and serve, and any breach of that duty is a betrayal of the trust placed in them. The Venezuelan woman who accused Sergeant Devin Colon of sexual relations detailed a harrowing experience in the lawsuit. She claimed that Sergeant Colon repeatedly promised to help her start a new life in America. However, around Christmas, he took her and her children to a house under false pretenses, where he allegedly demanded sexual favors in exchange for his assistance. Penniless and unsure of her whereabouts, the woman felt trapped and had no choice but to engage in sexual activity with Sergeant Colon. The woman's 17-year-old daughter was also subjected to inappropriate behavior, as Sergeant Colon allegedly began texting her and telling her that she was attractive. These actions further compounded the trauma experienced by the family, leaving them feeling violated and betrayed. Another victim, Alexander Vizcaino, a Venezuelan migrant, recounted a disturbing incident involving a supervisor employed by .go. Vizcaino claimed that the supervisor put his hands around his neck without any provocation and subsequently evicted him from the hotel. This act of violence left Vizcaino in a vulnerable state, forcing him to sleep next to a gas station dumpster for 3 days. The temporary housing situation remains uncertain for him and his wife, Florengelis Cabrera, as they continue to live in fear and uncertainty. These first-hand accounts highlight the immense physical, emotional, and psychological toll that the alleged abuses have taken on the victims. They came to the United States seeking safety and protection, only to find themselves subjected to further trauma and exploitation. It is crucial to recognize the courage of these individuals in coming forward and sharing their stories. Their bravery sheds light on the urgent need for comprehensive reforms and safeguards to protect the rights and well-being of migrants. The situation in New York has indeed been abysmal. New York City responds to the migrant surge. As the migrant surge in New York City continues to unfold, both the state and federal governments have been forced to take action to address the growing humanitarian crisis. The influx of migrants seeking asylum has put a strain on the city's resources, prompting a response that aims to provide support and alleviate the burden on local communities. Mayor Adams has been vocal about the financial strain that the migrant surge has placed on the city. With a staggering $12 billion deficit, the mayor has been forced to make budget cuts across various city agencies. These cuts have impacted essential services, affecting the daily lives of New Yorkers. Adams has emphasized that every service in the city will be impacted by the financial strain caused by the surge. To mitigate the financial burden, Adams has called for more federal funding to support the city's efforts in providing assistance to migrants. The federal government has responded to some extent, but the funding falls short of the $350 million in aid that New York City initially requested. To date, the city has received over $140 million in federal funding, with $30 million coming from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. While this funding provides some relief, it is clear that more assistance is needed to effectively manage the crisis. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Governor Hochul and state legislators have taken steps to address the migrant surge. In the spring, they secured secured $1 billion in the state budget, specifically allocated to support New York City's response to the influx of migrants. This funding will be used for various purposes, including housing, National Guard support, and legal services. Governor Hochul has acknowledged that additional funds will be required from the state to adequately address the crisis, even before any additional money is approved. Mayor Adams has also called for a statewide decompression strategy to ensure that all counties in New York are actively involved in addressing the humanitarian crisis. This strategy aims to distribute the responsibility of supporting migrants across the state, preventing an overwhelming concentration of migrants in New York City alone. By involving all counties, the state can better manage the resources and provide more comprehensive support to migrants. In addition to the statewide strategy, Adams has requested the state to establish more sites in New York City that will be managed by the state itself. This approach aims to streamline the management of migrant support services and ensure that resources are effectively allocated. By having the state take a more direct role in managing these sites, it is hoped that the response efforts will be more coordinated and efficient. Furthermore, Mayor Adams has reached out to President Biden, urging him to declare a state of emergency to manage the border. This declaration would not only bring attention to the severity of the crisis, but could also unlock additional funding and resources to support New York City's response. Adams believes that a state of emergency declaration would provide the necessary tools and support to effectively manage the surge and alleviate the strain on the city's resources. The migrant surge in New York City has not only placed a strain on the city's resources, but has also had significant financial implications. Mayor Adams has been vocal about the staggering financial burden that the city is facing as it strives to support the growing number of migrants seeking asylum. To put the financial impact into perspective, let's take a closer look at the numbers. According to Mayor Adams, the city currently spends a substantial amount per household on food, housing, and other services for over 25,600 families seeking asylum. This expenditure alone highlights the scale of the support required to meet the basic needs of these vulnerable individuals and families. On an average night, the city is responsible for the care of approximately 57,300 migrants. This means that the city spends around $9.8 million per day to provide essential services and support to these individuals. This staggering daily cost further emphasizes the financial strain that the migrant surge has placed on New York City. To address the financial burden, Mayor Adams has already made budget cuts across various city agencies. With a $12 billion deficit, these cuts have impacted essential services that New Yorkers rely on daily. Adams has emphasized that every service in the city will be impacted by the financial strain caused by the surge. The cuts have forced the city to reassess its priorities and allocate resources to address the pressing needs of the migrant population. However, despite these budget cuts, the financial burden remains significant. Mayor Adams has stated that the city will need to add an additional $7 billion to its financial plan to effectively manage the crisis. This additional funding is crucial to ensure that the city can continue to provide the necessary support and services to migrants seeking asylum. Recognizing the need for additional financial support, Mayor Adams has called on the federal government to provide more funding. To date, New York City has received over $140 million in federal funding for migrants. While this is a substantial amount, it falls short of the $350 million in federal aid that the city initially requested. The funding received from the federal government, including the $30 million from FEMA, has provided some relief, but it is clear that more assistance is needed to address the financial implications of the surge. In addition to federal funding, Governor Hochul and state legislators have secured $1 billion in the state budget to address the influx of migrants in New York City. This funding will go towards housing, National Guard support, and legal services. However, Governor Hochul has acknowledged that more money will be required from the state to effectively manage the crisis. The financial implications of the surge extend beyond the city's budget, necessitating a collaborative effort between the city and the state to secure the necessary funds. The financial strain caused by the migrant surge highlights the need for additional support from both the federal and state governments. Mayor Adams has been proactive in advocating for more funding to alleviate the burden on the city's resources. The financial implications of the surge extend beyond the immediate costs of providing support and services to migrants. They also impact the city's ability to maintain essential services for its residents. That brings us to the end of the video. For more videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.